There are many ways to go about making a character in Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition, but my favorite characters tend to have a certain synergy about who and what they are that make them feel a bit more complete and fleshed out. What's going on, everyone? I'm Jake from JNJtabletop, and in this video, I'm going to walk you through the process in which I typically go about making a character. The very first thing that I do is I think about the base character concept that I want to play. And this could come from anything. It could be maybe you saw a movie or TV show and you really just liked the main character or a character there and you just thought that would be really fun. And it could be really kind of any little statement. It could be a role you want to fill in the party. So maybe you want to smash things and break them, and a barbarian or a fighter or a paladin, and you just like being on the front line, being that tank. Perhaps you want to control the battlefield and make sure that your party is facing threats in an orderly fashion. So you play something like a wizard or a druid, and maybe even a bard, depending on the spells you choose. Perhaps it's a little bit more on the nose and you're just like, I want to be Storm from X-Men, and I'm picking the Storm Sorcerer because pretty sure that was the design goal there in Xanathar's Guide to Everything. Maybe you want to support your allies and heal them and just say, hey, I'm going to play a cleric. And then perhaps one of the most classic archetypes is I'm going to hide in the shadows and strike without ever being seen. And I'm going to choose something like a rogue or a ranger. But really the point behind this is it's best to know where the design of your character is headed. Because I think if you know exactly what it is you're trying to do, the choices along the way just start to make sense. And when you start to look at the options, because there's a few options really to choose from, it really starts to narrow the field and make this whole process a little easier. So after we know where we're headed and we have our base character concept down, I just start at the beginning at that point. The very first thing that happens to somebody is that they're born, or I guess in some cases, especially in D&D terms, maybe they're created. And that really just starts with picking your race. Unless you're trying to pick some kind of an odd combination or something that kind of goes against type, because those could be actually very fun characters to play. But unless you're looking to do that, I really would just suggest picking a race that supports the things that you're trying to do. So to use the examples from before, if you want to be strong and break things, like a barbarian or fighter, pick something that has a strength bonus like a mountain dwarf or a half-orc. If you want to be a wizard, you need to buff your intelligence, so a gnome would be a good choice there. If you want to play a storm sorcerer or any other charisma-based class, a half-elf is a good choice. A cleric? Pick a furbolg, they get a wisdom bonus. If you want to be that rogue or ranger like we talked about earlier, a halfling or wood elf gets a dexterity bonus. And the reason behind this is because typically you don't want to just be failing at the things you're trying to do, because sure, sometimes funny fails can be fun to enjoy, but for the most part, you want to be successful at what you're trying to do. And I think just lining your race up with the class that you're going to play, it really does make a lot of sense. After your character has begun their life, they grew up somewhere. And that just kind of makes me think about background next. Now, this is the kind of choice that really is a lot less like traditionally power gamey, in that it's not really going to give you this like massive in-game benefit. I mean, usually you get a couple of skill proficiencies, maybe you get a language or a tool proficiency, and some other way that you can get a place to sleep for free. But it really is more about flavor for me at this point. You're going to start to think about your character's personality, the things like a principle that they hold dear, or like the people that are important to them, and even some flaws that make us human, or in D&D, you know, some other kind of creature. But anyways, it really is where you start to think about the things that are important to your character. So maybe it's as simple as your family is important to you, or perhaps it's the mentor that taught you how to be a fighter. They taught you how to cast spells, whatever it is that your character does. So maybe you're taking the Outlander background and you were raised in the wilds, and you find a threat that's going to threaten your homeland, and that's why you're driven to adventure. Perhaps you've always had your nose in a book and you just feel like, I need to stop reading about life and I need to start experiencing it. Maybe, to use a storm sorcerer example, maybe you have the sailor background because you were born during the like worst thunderstorm the world has ever seen, and the ocean is just always called to you, and you just feel like you have to sail the seas. Maybe you grew up in a temple with a devoted life to in service of your deity, and now you have some kind of coming of age story, and you're being sent out to prove yourself as worthy to carry the title of whatever it is that you're going to be carrying. Or maybe you're going to just take maybe something a little more on the nose like Aladdin and be a rogue who is a street urchin, a street rat, and you're just trying to eke out a living the best that you can. It really is, when we're talking about background, it really kind of just starts to shape your character. And instead of just thinking this is an adventurer and they do the things they do, they can fight, they can do all these things, and yeah, I want to make money and all that, but you start to answer the question, why? And I think that's what D&D does a little bit better than, any video game ever could. I really, this is the part that not specifically just background, but when you can answer the question as to why your character is going on an adventure, I really think that's when D&D shines. It's a lot of fun. Next, we come to your ability scores. And this really could be done at any time that makes sense for you. And there are many ways you could go about it, but just make sure that you and the DM are on the same page and everything should be fine. The only real advice I could give you is to put the highest ability score in the one you're going to use the most. So if you are a spellcaster, that's going to be your spellcasting ability. If you're going to be making physical attacks, that's going to be either strength or dexterity, depending on, whatever way you go about doing that. And then when in doubt, a high constitution is never a bad thing, because that affects how many hit points you have. And the more hit points you have, the harder you are to kill. And the harder you are to kill, you live longer. And that's good. And then last, you start filling in your character sheet with the options that you've already chosen. First, we start with race, and then you mark off any skills that you are proficient in because of it, and any special features that you have. The next thing to do would then be to go to your background and do the same thing, but now you get to also add some starting equipment that you have. And then last, you choose the skills and equipment that you get based on your class selection, and then I write down anything that's important to remember. If you are not using something like D&D Beyond or Fight Club 5 and you're using a physical piece of paper, a handy tool tip could be to just maybe write down the page number and the book that a feature, the full description of that feature is in, so that, in case you're ever confused about something, you can always look that up and it's easier to do so. So that just about does it for this video. Hopefully you feel like you have a little bit more tools in the tool belt to go about making a character that feels a little more fleshed out and a little bit less like just some numbers on a page somewhere. Feel free to tell us about some fun character concepts or characters that you've played in the past in the comment section below, or maybe some other character creation tips that you've found useful. And if you like this video, please give us a thumbs up. And if you're interested in seeing me and the rest of the J&J Tabletop crew play some D&D, go ahead and subscribe to this YouTube channel, and also follow our Twitch channel at twitch.tv/JNJtabletop. We're going to have links to that and all the other social media things in the description. And hopefully we'll see you soon playing some Dungeons & Dragons.